The Discovery captain Marcus Kane had seen plenty of impossible things during his 15 years patrolling the Outer Rim territories. Plasma storms that painted the void in colors that had no names. Derelict ships from civilizations that vanished before Earth even had written language. But nothing had prepared him for the sight of a woman floating in the absolute emptiness of space, unconscious and somehow still breathing. His cargo hauler, the Iron Will, had been running a routine supply. Dropped to mining station Omega when the proximity alarms started screaming. The sensors showed an object roughly human-sized drifting in the debris field of what used to be a research outpost. Marcus had expected to find another casualty from the recent Void Walker attacks. Instead, he found her got. She was tall, maybe 6 feet, with silver hair that seemed to catch light that wasn't there. Her skin had a faint luminescent quality, like starlight trapped beneath the surface. But it was her ears that made Marcus's breath catch. They were elongated, pointed, swept back in elegant curves that no human possessed. This was definitely not one of his kind. "Chief, you seeing this?" Marcus called to his engineer, a gruff veteran named Tommy Briggs, who had been working on ships since before Faster Than Light. Travel was even a dream. Tommy's weathered face appeared on the con screen, squinting at the readings. "Captain, that thing's got a heartbeat. Slow but steady. And get this, she's generating some kind of energy field, keeping her alive in hard vacuum." Marcus guided the ship closer, extending the cargo bay doors. "Bring her in, gently." As they pulled the mysterious woman aboard, Marcus noticed something else strange. The debris around her wasn't random. It formed patterns, geometric shapes that seemed almost intentional, like someone had arranged the wreckage for a purpose he couldn't understand. The woman stirred as they sealed the cargo bay and restored atmosphere. Her eyes opened slowly, revealing irises that shifted color like oil on water. When she saw Marcus, she tried to sit up too quickly and collapsed back onto the deck plating. "Easy there," Marcus said, kneeling beside her. "You're safe. I'm Captain Kane of the Iron Will." She studied his face with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Then, in accented English that sounded like music, she said, "You are human. How curious. I did not expect to encounter your species in this sector." "My species?" Marcus helped her sit up against a cargo crate. "Lady, last I checked, humans were pretty much everywhere out here. Question is, what species are you?" A shadow crossed her features. "I am Kestra Moonweave of the Ethereal Collective, and I fear I have brought great danger to your space." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, the ship's long-range scanners erupted in alerts. Tommy's voice crackled over the intercom, tight with worry. "Captain, we've got multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Big ones, and they don't look friendly." Marcus rushed to the bridge, Kestra following on unsteady legs. The view screen showed a sight that made his blood run cold. 7 massive vessels, each the size of a city, hung in space like sleeping predators. Their hulls were black as the void between stars, covered in organic-looking protrusions that pulsed with sickly green light. "Void walkers," Kestra whispered behind him. "They have followed me here." The lead ship began broadcasting on all frequencies. The voice that emerged was like grinding metal and screaming wind. "Return what was taken. Surrender the key bearer. Resist and your world burns." Marcus looked at Kestra, pieces of a terrifying puzzle beginning to form in his mind. "What did you take from them?" Her expression was grim as she placed a hand over her heart. "Not what I took, what I am. I carry within me the location of humanity's true origin. And if the Void Walkers claim it, your entire species will cease to exist." The revelation the Void Walker fleet arranged itself in an attack formation that Marcus recognized from too many classified briefings. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to sterilize everything in the system and sort through the ashes. Later, Tommy, how fast can you get us to the jump point? Marcus called down to engineering while keeping his eyes on the tactical display. Give me 8 minutes and a prayer to whatever God looks after crazy cargo haulers, came the reply. 8 minutes. Marcus had seen Void Walker ships in action before. They could reduce a planet to radioactive dust in half that time. He looked at Kestra, who was studying the enemy formation with the calm focus of someone who had faced this threat before. Start talking, he said, and make it fast. What's this about humanity's origin? Kestra moved to the navigation console and called up a star chart that Marcus had never seen before. It showed not just their local sector, but vast regions of space marked in symbols that hurt to look at directly. Your people believe they evolved naturally on Earth, she began, her fingers dancing over controls that responded to her touch despite being designed for human hands. This is not entirely true. Humanity was seeded across multiple worlds by an ancient race called the Architects. Earth was merely one garden among thousands. Marcus felt the deck plating vibrate as Tommy pushed the engines beyond their safety. Limits. You're saying we're not originally from Earth. Your DNA carries markers, signatures left by the Architects. But Earth's markers are unique. They point to the location of the Architects' home world, the world where their greatest creations still sleep. The view screen flared as the Void Walker ships began their approach. Marcus could see smaller vessels launching from their bays like angry insects from a disturbed hive. And these Void Walkers want this location because... Kestra's expression darkened. The Architects created weapons of unimaginable power before they vanished. Weapons that could reshape reality itself. The Void Walkers have consumed 17 star systems searching for these artifacts. If they find the home world, they become gods, Marcus finished grimly. The ship shuddered as the first enemy missiles began to impact their shields. Warning lights bathed the bridge in hellish red. Captain! Tommy's voice was strained. Shields at 60% and falling. We're not going to make the jump point. Marcus stared at the tactical display, watching death approach in the form of sleek alien fighters. Then an idea began to form. Crazy, desperate, probably suicidal. Exactly the kind of plan that had kept him alive this long. Kestra, those patterns. In the debris field where I found you. You made those, didn't you? She nodded. A resonance beacon. I was trying to call for help when the Void Walkers found me. Can you make another one? Something bigger? Her eyes widened as she understood his plan. You want to summon aid. But, Captain, there is no one close enough to help us. Marcus grinned. The kind of expression that had made his enemies nervous and his friends worried for decades. There is if you're calling the right frequency. He opened a channel to every human ship and station in the sector. This is Captain Marcus Kane to all Terra vessels. Code Black Emergency. I need every ship that can fly to these coordinates. And I need them now. The response was immediate. Cargo haulers, mining ships, pleasure craft, even a few military escorts. That happened to be in the area. Not much of a fleet by any standard measure, but it was what humanity did best. When the call went out, they came running. Kestra, start building your beacon. Make it loud enough to wake the dead. As she worked, Marcus watched the ragtag collection of human vessels forming up around his position. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing an enemy that had destroyed civilizations. But they were human, and humans had a talent for defying impossible odds. The battle, the first wave of Void Walker fighters, hit the human formation like a dark tide against a breakwater. Marcus watched from the Iron Will's bridge as cargo haulers that had never fired a shot in anger suddenly sprouted improvised weapons and began returning fire. Tommy, Redirect all power to the forward shields, Marcus ordered. We need to keep Kestra alive long enough to finish that beacon. The ship lurched as a plasma bolt grazed their hull. Through the viewscreen, Marcus could see the mining vessel Prospector's Dream sacrificing itself to cover the retreat of 3 smaller craft. Captain Janet Foster, a grandmother who hauled ore for a living, was matching her converted freighter against Void Walker destroyers and somehow holding her own. Human vessels, came a transmission from the lead enemy ship. You fight for something you do not understand. Surrender the key bearer, and your deaths will be swift. Marcus keyed his COMM to broadcast on all frequencies. This is Captain Kane to the Void Walker fleet. Here's humanity's counteroffer. Go to hell. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The Void Walker motherships opened fire with weapons that turned space itself into a weapon. Reality warped around their energy beams, creating pockets of twisted physics that swallowed everything they touched. But the humans adapted. They always adapted. The freighter Captain Rico Valdez began using his ship's gravity manipulation cargo systems as weapons, creating localized gravity wells that dragged enemy fighters off course. The pleasure yacht Morning Star, crewed by retired military veterans on a fishing trip, somehow managed to jury-rig their recreational particle beam into a weapon that could punch through Void Walker armor. Beacon at 40% completion, Kestra reported, her hands moving in complex patterns over a device she had constructed from spare parts and what looked like crystallized starlight. But Captain, I must warn you. What I am calling may be as dangerous as what we fight. Marcus ducked as another impact shook the ship. Right now, I'll take dangerous allies over certain death. Through the tactical display, he watched the human formation slowly being ground down. They were buying time with their lives, each sacrifice. Giving Kestra a few more precious seconds to complete her work dot, then something changed. The Void Walker ships began pulling back, their formation tightening into a defensive posture. The reason became clear when Marcus's sensors detected massive energy signatures approaching from deep space. Unknown vessels, came a new voice on the comm. Clean, precise, utterly alien. You have activated an architect beacon. State your purpose. Marcus looked at Kestra, who had gone pale. I told you this might be dangerous, she whispered. 3 ships emerged from hyperspace, and Marcus understood immediately why the Void Walkers were retreating. These weren't ships in any conventional sense. They were geometric impossibilities, made manifest, shapes that existed in more dimensions than human eyes could properly process. Just looking at them made his head ache. This is Captain Marcus Kane of the human vessel Iron Will, he transmitted. We're protecting someone carrying information about architect sites. The Void Walkers are trying to take her. There was a pause that seemed to stretch for eternity. Then the alien voice spoke again, and there was something almost like surprise in its tone. Human, you carry architect markers in your genetic structure. How curious. We believed all the garden worlds had been sterilized. The lead architect vessel moved forward, and Marcus watched in awe as reality simply rearranged itself around it. The Void Walker fighters caught in its path didn't explode or burn. They simply ceased to exist, edited out of the universe like mistakes being erased. The Void Walkers will withdraw, the voice continued. But this incident raises questions that must be answered. You will accompany us to receive judgment. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Somehow, he suspected that being judged by beings this powerful was not going to be a pleasant experience. The truth, architect ship was a maze of impossible angles and corridors that seemed to exist in folded space. Marcus and Kestra walked through halls where the walls showed glimpses of other realities, other versions of the universe where different choices had been made. Their guide was a being that called itself the Curator. It appeared human at first glance, but the resemblance was superficial. Its eyes held the weight of eons, and when it moved, space itself seemed to bend slightly around it. "Your species fascinates us," the curator said as they walked. "We seeded many worlds with genetic templates, but humanity has developed in ways we did not anticipate." They entered a vast chamber filled with floating displays, showing star charts and genetic sequences. At the center stood a holographic representation of Earth, slowly rotating to show the continents as they had been millions of years ago. "The truth is more complex than either of you understand," the curator continued. "Yes, we guided human development, but not in the way Kestra believes." The hologram shifted, showing the solar system as it had been in the distant past. Marcus saw additional planets in Earth's orbit, worlds that no longer existed. "Humanity was not seeded from elsewhere," the curator explained. "You were created here on Earth as part of an experiment. We wanted to see if a species could develop naturally while carrying dormant architect genetic markers." Kestra stepped forward, her expression troubled. "But the location data I carry ... points to Earth itself," the curator finished. "Your planet is the architect home world, hidden in plain sight, its true nature suppressed by probability shields and temporal masking." Marcus felt the ground shift beneath his understanding of reality. "You're saying Earth is your home world? That humanity evolved on the birthplace of an ancient supercivilization?" "More than that," the curator said, and for the first time there was something like emotion in its voice. "The markers in human DNA are not just architect genetic material. They are activation codes. Humanity is not descended from the architects. You are the architects, sleeping until the proper time." The chamber filled with new images. Cities that existed in folded dimensions. Weapons that could reshape the fundamental laws of physics. Technologies that turn thought into reality. "The Void Walkers have been searching for us for eons," the curator continued. "They consume civilizations, but they cannot create. They seek the architect legacy to become what they could never be, but they have been looking in the wrong places." Marcus stared at the displays, showing human genetic sequences slowly activating, codes written in DNA beginning to unlock. "How long until this activation is complete?" "It has already begun," Kestra said softly. She was looking at her hands, which were beginning to glow with the same starlight he had seen in the debris field. "The beacon I created, the technology I used. It was not ethereal collective science. It was human intuition, human creativity, accessing genetic memories." The curator nodded. "Humanity stands at the threshold. Some will awaken to their true nature. Others will remain as they are. But the choice belongs to your species alone." Marcus thought about the battle they had just fought. Humans in cargo ships and pleasure craft, facing impossible odds, and somehow finding a way to win. Not through superior technology or ancient weapons, but through pure stubborn determination and the refusal to give up. "What about the Void Walkers?" he asked. The curator's expression grew grim. "They will not stop. When they realize the truth, they will come for Earth with everything they have. Your awakening civilization will face its first true test." Marcus looked out through the impossible walls of the architect ship at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, the Void Walkers were regrouping, planning their next move. And on Earth, 6 billion humans were about to discover there was something far more than they had ever imagined. "Then we'd better get ready," he said. The awakening 3 months after the encounter with the architect ship, Earth was no longer the same world Marcus had left. The awakening had begun, just as the curator had predicted, but not in the way anyone expected. Marcus stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed orbital defense platform, watching as human ships launched from facilities that had simply materialized overnight. Not built, not constructed, but remembered into existence by awakening human minds that suddenly knew how to fold space and time. The latest reports from the surface are incredible, Kestra said, joining him at the view screen. She had chosen to remain with the humans during the awakening, claiming that her destiny was tied to theirs now. Her ethereal collective heritage was proving useful as a bridge between human intuition and cosmic understanding. How many have awakened so far? Marcus asked. Approximately 12% of the population. But it's not random. It's following patterns. Artists, engineers, explorers, dreamers. People who push boundaries and refuse to accept limitations. Marcus nodded. He had seen it himself. A street musician in New York who could now compose symphonies that existed in 17 dimensions. An engineer in Tokyo whose bridges spanned not just rivers but parallel realities. A child in rural Montana who had built a working faster-than-light communicator from spare electronics and what her mother had assumed was an overactive imagination. Any word from the deep space monitoring stations? Kestra's expression darkened. The Void Walkers are coming. The curator estimates they have assembled the largest fleet in their species' history. They know what Earth really is now. Through the view screen, Marcus could see the construction crews working on the planet's defenses. But these weren't ordinary construction crews. They were awakened humans who could manipulate matter at the quantum level, creating defensive systems that existed partially outside normal spacetime. Tommy's down in engineering, working on something he calls a reality anchor, Marcus said with a slight smile. Claims it will let our ships exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. I stopped trying to understand the technical details when he started explaining how to tie quantum foam into sailors' knots. The comm system chimed with an incoming transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Catherine Cross appeared on the screen. A woman whose awakening had given her the ability to see probability streams and tactical possibilities that extended into multiple futures. Captain Kane, Specialist Moonweave. We've detected the Void Walker Advance Fleet entering our outer system. Estimated time to engagement, 6 hours. Marcus straightened. How many ships? 4,000 capital ships, twice that in support vessels. They've brought enough firepower to crack a planet. Kestra moved to the tactical display. The awakened humans on Earth. How many are combat capable? About 3,000, Admiral Cross replied. But remember, we're not fighting this war with traditional weapons or tactics. Our people are learning to use abilities that rewrite the rules of physics. Marcus thought about the months of preparation, watching humans discover they could do impossible things simply by believing they were possible. A physicist in Geneva who could create stable wormholes by solving equations in her head. A pilot in California who had learned to fly by becoming one with her ship's consciousness. Admiral, what's our overall strategy? Cross smiled, and for a moment, Marcus caught a glimpse of the cosmic awareness that had awakened in her. We're going to show the Void Walkers what happens when you threaten a species that's just discovered can rewrite reality. Captain, report. To Fighter Bay 7. You're leading the first wave. An hour later, Marcus sat in the cockpit of a fighter that was less machine than crystallized thought. Beside him, similar craft piloted by awakened humans prepared for a battle that would determine the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. All fighters, this is home base, came Admiral Cross's voice. Remember, you're not just pilots anymore. You're reality shapers. Trust your instincts, trust your awakening, and trust each other. Marcus looked out at the approaching darkness of the Void Walker fleet and felt something shift inside him. Genetic memories surfaced, knowledge of battles fought across cosmic ages, of civilizations that had risen and fallen under alien skies. But beneath it all was something uniquely human. The stubborn refusal to give up, the creative spark that found solutions where none should exist, the ability to adapt and overcome. no matter what the universe threw at them. "This is Cain to all human forces," he transmitted. "Today we find out what we're really made of. Let's show these invaders why you don't mess with a species that's just remembered how to move mountains." The battle began as the two fleets met in the space between worlds. And in that cosmic arena, humanity took its first steps as the awakened. Inheritors of the architect legacy, fighting not just for survival, but for the right to determine their own destiny among the stars.